and cultivate your motivation. Okay, so yesterday we started the text and we talked about the title and the translator's homage. And then Nagarjuna introduced 6 things that it is good for us to contemplate that helps us develop faith, especially before we hear teachings. So the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then the celestial beings, generosity, and ethical conduct. Okay? And those 6 come in the Pali tradition too. They're spoken about there as well. Okay? So then he goes into the essence of the path. And so yesterday I read the first paragraph there where he just outlined the 6 perfections. Okay? Perfection is a funny translation. The Sanskrit can be translated as perfection, but it's a weird word for English-speaking ears because we think, well, you know how we think of perfection. It's like something up there that's impossible. And so this is not the meaning of it, okay? The meaning is more of how we can improve and enhance these qualities, and in that way perfect them and expand them and really utilize them, okay, to benefit sentient beings. The Tibetan word is paralduchin, which means to go beyond. So sometimes we translate it as the 6 far-reaching attitudes. So this goes back to the question this morning about samsara being an ocean, and these are things that reach far, okay, that go beyond the ocean of samsara. Okay, so I'll read that verse 8 again to remind us. Generosity and discipline, fortitude, joyous effort, concentration, and the wisdom that knows thusness. Thusness means the reality, ultimate reality. Those measureless perfections make them grow. Be a mighty conqueror who's crossed samsara's sea. So the Buddha is often called the conqueror because he has conquered the afflictions and defilements. Okay, so now we're going to go into more detail about these 6. So the first one is generosity, which we've talked about already, but here it comes again. So it says, those who show their parents great respect with Brahma or a master will be linked. By venerating them, they'll win repute. In future, they'll attain the higher realms. Okay, so here he's talking specifically about being kind to our parents. Yeah, but of course, kindness should go beyond our parents to all living beings. But in Nagarjuna's time, taking care of your parents was really emphasized. And in many cultures, especially in Asia, it's still something strongly emphasized. In the West, yes, it's emphasized, but in past decades, there's been nursing homes and long care facilities and things like that. So everybody, sees it differently. And also, Yeah. So each family is different. Each parent is different. But the idea is to have appreciation for our parents, first of all, because they gave us this life. And that's kind of the bottom line. I mean, they may have done all sorts of other things that we liked or didn't like, but bottom line is they gave us our life, and it's with this life that we're able to practice the Dharma. So it's very important to respect and appreciate our parents for that reason alone, if not for many more. And, in the West, the kind of, I think it's changing now with this generation, but before my generation, it was like, nobody got along with their parents. And not nobody, but many people had problems with their parents. I'm watching my brother and sister and their kids. Their kids get along very well with them, much better than I got along with my parents. So that's very nice. You have nice kids too. Yeah. So you can tell them I said so. Okay. Okay. So here, I think it is important for us to make peace with our parents, whether they're living or whether they've passed away. So, because it's hard, if we hold a strong grudge or resentment towards our parents, it really becomes some kind of hindrance in our practice, because we're trying to have love and compassion for all sentient beings, and they're definitely involved in all sentient beings. Okay, they're included in that. Okay, so that doesn't mean we have to be close to them and, go over for Sunday dinner all the time, but it does mean that we, in our own hearts and minds, have settled whatever issues there were between us. Yeah. And that we can have a loving and appreciative mind for them. Yeah. One of the big things that helped me a lot was that one of the big issues I had with my parents is I felt that they didn't accept me for who I was. And then one day it dawned on me that I didn't accept them for who they were either, that I wanted them to be different. And then I said, that's not really fair of me to expect them to understand and accept me if I don't understand and accept them. So I better change my way of thinking here. Yeah. And that really, for me, opened the door to accepting my parents for who they are. And I have images of how I would like them to be, and they aren't that, and that's perfectly okay. Yeah. That's perfectly okay. And then that really helped me to accept them, And then, you help them when you can, and you mind your own business when they don't want your help. Yeah. And that's it. You don't try and control them. You can't control them. And they don't want us to control them. Yeah. When they want help, they'll let us know. And then that's the time to help. Otherwise, giving them advice and trying to make them into the parents we want them to be, then we're just role reversing when they were parents and gave us advice we didn't want to hear, trying to make us into the kids we didn't want to be. Okay, so let's accept them and love them for who they are. And realize, I don't know about you, but my parents went through a lot bringing me up. I don't think it's so easy having kids and bringing them up. I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the world. And then, when you have kids that are kind of bratty, then and all kids are bratty at one time or another, aren't they? Yeah. So it doesn't make parents' lives particularly easy when they have to manage, these wild, out of control, strong-willed kids who have their own ideas, our own ideas. Give me the keys to the car and you pay for the gas. Yeah. Isn't that? And give me the keys to the car, you pay for the gas, and don't tell me what time to be home. Yeah. And we call that us being nice to our parents, So that's not. So we need to, kind of, settle everything in our own mind and then learn to appreciate them for who they were and what they did, and even tell them so. Yeah. Once I started practicing Dharma, I wrote my parents letters of appreciation. I had never done that before. Yeah. And it really changed things, and then you change yourself. And when they make those remarks that you used to, they throw out the hooks. Instead of biting the hooks, you just let the hooks land on the ground. You don't have to bite them. Yeah. You don't have to say, take the hooks back. Just let them land on the ground. That's it. Okay. So many benefits come from being respectful to our parents. Yeah. And so one is that we will encounter spiritual mentors, and we will be able to have friends, be associated with people like Brahma. Brahma's one of the gods in the God realm. I don't know that you necessarily care about being associated with Brahma, but, it means that we will have nice friends and good associates, which is important in life, isn't it? Okay. And so, by venerating our parents, then other people respect us, and we'll have a good rebirth. So it's interesting that, in the perfection of generosity, he talks about the relationship with the parents. And that's the only verse here about generosity. All the other verses came earlier. So it's interesting that he did that. Okay, then the next, so that was verse 9. Then 2 verses about ethical conduct or discipline. Okay, so this has to do with the precepts to keep. So eschew all harm, don't steal, make love or lie, abstain from drink, untimely greed for food, indulging in high beds and singing too. Refrain from dancing, all ornaments shun. That's verse 10. Verse 11, for men and women who keep this 8-branched vow and emulate the vows the Arhats took, their wish to nurture and to cleanse will grant them handsome bodies as celestial gods. Okay, so this is talking, remember he's talking to the king. So here he is giving, outlining ethical conduct for the king as a layperson. The king seems to have a problem lusting after other people's wives, but we'll come to that verses in the future. But it seems that Nagarjuna needs to talk with him about that. Okay, so this applies to us too. So eschew all harm, so that's killing and harming others physically. Don't steal. Yeah, here it says don't have sexual relations, but if you take the 1-day precepts, which there's 8 1-day precepts, then you're celibate for that 24-hour period. Yeah. Otherwise, for lay people, they take a precept not to abandon unwise and unkind sexual behavior. Okay. Don't lie. Abstain from drink. We've talked about all those before. Okay. And then some extra ones to make up 8. untimely greed for food. So in the context of the 8 precepts, then you can eat between sunrise and midday, and then at other times before or after that, then just take liquids. Okay, don't sit on high beds or thrones, high seats, which is usually above a cubit. Okay, but in our culture, everybody sits on chairs. It's no big deal. In ancient India, nobody sat on chairs, but the king or whoever it was, the important person, sat higher up. But nowadays everybody kind of sits on the same thing. So I interpret that more as when given a choice to sit, don't put yourself in the prominent position. Okay? Don't make a big deal about yourself, about putting yourself in the nicest seat. Okay? And then abandon singing and dancing. Yeah, people often say, well, what's wrong with that? I listen to music, it makes me calm and peaceful. Rap music, hard rock makes you calm and peaceful? Really? Okay, but one reason for these things is that often when we engage in singing and dancing, we want to draw attention to ourselves. Listen to my nice voice. Yeah, look at how well I dance. And, we want attention. It's a way of showing off. And also, when you sit down to meditate, it's very easy to be humming the melodies to whatever you were singing before. Okay, and then trying to remember the words for the song that you're humming the melody for, and then that gets all tangled up with the mantra you're reciting. And so better to abandon those. And then no ornaments or perfumes, anything decorative to make ourselves look nicer. Okay. So those are the 8. And taking those 8, even for a period of one day, is called emulating the arhats. And you'll remember that from the Anagarika precepts that some of you took, because you can take the one-day precepts for a longer period of time. Okay, so it's called emulating the arhats because just as they kept, the arhats are liberated beings, just as they kept very good ethical conduct, and we want to follow in their footsteps and be like them. Mm-hmm.
Friday, the last day of the retreat, is Posada, and so there will be an opportunity if people want to take precepts, and we can talk more about that closer to the time.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay, their wish to nurture and cleanse will grant them handsome bodies as celestial gods. So you nurture your good qualities, you cleanse your bad habits when you take these precepts. Okay, and by keeping good ethical conduct, then we create the causes to have a fortunate rebirth, especially one where we can continue practicing the Dharma, which is really important. Yeah, to have another, a whole sequence of good rebirths where we can continue to practice. And you also, if you want, he's talking to the king here, you can have a very attractive body and be born as a desire realm god if you want that. So you can see that he's dealing with the king right where the king's at. The king's thinking of the happiness of this life. Yeah. And so, okay, you can have a good rebirth and, attractive body in the desire realm as a desire realm god. And that's speaking to what the king can handle. He's going to gradually over time lead the king so that he can have a broader vision of his potential and what he can become. Okay, so that's verses 10 and 11. Verses 12 verse 12 is about getting rid of incompatible traits. So things that interfere with our ethical conduct. So that verse is stinginess and deceit. It says cunning, but, the meaning as it's described is deceit. Greed and sloth. Sloth here means laziness. Arrogance here means pretension. Yeah, we talked about that. Attachment, hate, and pride. And then here the pride is talked about. I have good breeding. In other words, I come from my hereditarily, I have great ancestors and a high class. And, remember, this is directed towards a king who, you inherit your royalty. So I have good breeding, good looks, learning, youth, and power. And such traits are seen as enemies of good. Okay, so let's look at those things that interfere with ethical conduct and interfere with, acting in virtuous ways. So stinginess. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. I'm not going to talk about my maroon cashmere sweater again, but you can watch the stinginess, of not wanting to share, not wanting to give, even when others have less than we do, even when others have been kind to us. We often tend to hold on to the best for ourselves. Even when making offerings on the altar, you get a bunch of fruit and you keep the good pieces for yourself and you offer the bruised pieces to the Buddha. Yeah, many people do that. Or you offer the food in the morning and then when it's lunchtime and you want dessert, then you decide it's time to take it off. Which means you haven't really offered it because you were just putting it on the altar until you wanted to eat it. So that's not really offering. Okay, so stinginess is an incompatible trait. Yeah. And especially if you want to spread the Dharma, being stingy is not helpful for attracting people. Okay, and then deceit or cunning here means pretending we don't have the faults that we do have, deceiving people, acting deceitfully, covering up our faults. Greed, attachment to getting more and better, especially whole cultures are greedy. I would think American culture in general is quite greedy. The way we buy things, something breaks, and instead of repairing it, we throw it away. We get the latest thing. It becomes, you get the thing for 2021, and it still works in 2022, but it's considered old, so we throw it out and then, get a new whatever it is. I heard in one of the recent conferences, I forget which one it was one of the international gatherings about the climate change, that some people made a huge sculpture out of old digital equipment. Yeah, mouses and phones and computers and screens. And they made a whole art exhibit made out of these things to just demonstrate to the people at the conference of look how much we waste. Yeah. And what are we going to do with all this stuff? And as cultures, we, in terms of the world's resources, we take more than our fair share. And we pollute more than our fair share. And I think as Buddhists, we need to be aware of that kind of thing and not just go along with, Western superiority or whatever, thinking we can do whatever, because often it's people in poorer countries and minorities in our own country who suffer the most because of the pollution and waste caused by the wealthier people. And I think we have, a responsibility to rein in our consumer desires regarding that. Okay, greed, sloth. Okay, I'm done teaching. I want to go back to my room and, eat some chocolate and rest. It's been a hard day. There's been a lot of stuff I didn't expect to happen that happened today. Yeah, and I'll take the day off tomorrow too. And, maybe the day after that. And you guys can manage by yourself. Yeah, so we get lazy in terms of practicing the Dharma. We'd much rather lie around, or we keep ourselves very busy doing non-Dharma activities. Okay? Or another form of laziness is discouragement. We put ourselves down. Yeah. So it's interesting. We usually think of laziness as the first one, just lying around. But in terms of creating an obstacle to practicing the Dharma, the other two types of laziness do a very good job at that. So we're lazy in practicing the Dharma because we keep ourselves very busy, doing all sorts of non-Dharma things. And we're lazy in practicing the Dharma because, we just easily get discouraged and say, well, the whole thing's too hard. And I'm incompetent. And, that whole rigmarole we go through all the time. Okay. So sloth. That was sloth. Then where it says arrogance, it means pretension. So that's pretending to have excellent qualities we don't have. So we put on a good show. We want to impress people. We want them to think well of us. And so we just kind of embellish ourselves a little bit, And so you see the cards that for giving your contact info on a card. And now some people, their cards, director of this, vice president of that, chief of this, There's not enough space on the card, but you want everybody to know, presenter at this conference, master of ceremonies at this thing. And, we want everybody to know how special we are. So we put down all those titles, and I don't know about you, but it seems to me a lot of the titles you don't really wind up doing much. Yeah, I was just asked to be on the board of some Dharma thing, okay? The commitments are to do a conference call with them, a 1 hour conference call with them twice a year. Yeah, but boy, does it look good if I write board of Like, okay. Attachment. Yeah, I like this, I want that. Yeah, this person is mine, as if I possess them. Yeah, this, whatever it is, this is my car. When it's on the showroom floor and gets dented, I don't care. When I trade plastic for a car and I drive the car home and it gets dented, it's a big deal because it's mine and I am attached to it. Yeah, because my car, what does a car represent to you? Yeah, again, similar to money. success, status, power, being with it. Yeah, being young and, yeah, so you get your middle-aged red sports car, yeah, to show that you're young, and then you go, I correspond, one of the inmates I correspond with has been released, and he loves going to the NASCAR races. So this is what he tells me about, love the noise from the cars racing and seeing these cars, trying to go faster than the other one. And show attachment to this kind of thing. And, I don't know if he bets on them. I hope not. But, yeah, so we get attached to anything and everything. Yeah. I mean, you can look at this carpet and get attached to it. I don't know how, but I'm sure somebody could. Yeah. Okay. Hate. That also becomes a bit of impediment to keeping good ethical conduct. Yeah, because when we're full of hate and dislike and aversion, we want to harm. Or we want to just slam the door and not be near anybody, harm them by disassociating ourselves. And hate, as we know in our country now, is a big problem. Yeah. And the number of hate organizations tracked by the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center, the number of hate organizations is going up, and it's like, what do people get out of hating? Well, first of all, you get a feeling of power. Yeah. Underneath, you feel scared and insecure. So how do you deal with it? You create an enemy, and then your adrenaline starts going because you have an enemy that you hate, and the hatred takes over your life. It's quite sad. It's worse than sad, actually. It's really harmful. Yeah, if you watched, I'm sure everybody must have watched the videos of January 6th, and the expressions on people's face, this wasn't like a bunch of tourists going in to see the Capitol. These people were filled with anger and hate. Yeah, it was really something to see. Yeah. If you have the chance when you go home, New York Times did a 40-minute thing showing exactly what happened during what happened. Is very, I recommend watching it. It's sorrowful, and it is scary at the same time. Yeah, to see what hate and anger can do to somebody's mind. And it's not other people's minds, it's our minds too. Yeah, whatever we accuse other people of doing, we have those same qualities too, because we all have the same afflictions. Okay, hate, pride. I have good breeding. Yeah. Maybe if you're a descendant of the Roosevelts or the Trumps, or who knows what. Yeah, you have good breeding, and you are arrogant about your breeding. Yeah, my ancestors, there's nothing arrogant to be, to get conceited about. But some people really are, I was born into this family, and my family is an honorable one, a high status one in the country. And then you put yourself up because of it. Good looks, another thing we put ourselves up with. Well, maybe you people do. Yeah, I don't have the privilege of that. Okay, but you can get pretty arrogant about the way you look too, can't you? Yeah. Oh, I have such nice hair. And then as soon as somebody tells you your eyes are like diamonds and your teeth are like pearls, then you really go off the moon and like, this guy's great. And you get vain about it. We get arrogant about our learning. Yeah, I've been to so many Dharma teachings. I've received initiations. I know such and such a guru. I've received this and that a degree. I'm a member of this and that society. Yeah. I hope you people don't feel like I'm taking the rug out from under your feet, even though I am. But this is Nagarjuna saying this, not me. Okay. But it's true, isn't it? When we get arrogant about all these things. Yeah. What we used to get arrogant about is our genes. Yeah. The more patches you had in your genes, that was really classy, wasn't it? Yeah, some of you from my generation. Yeah. And you make sure you got really nice material to make patches on your jeans. And now they just buy them with, we had to like work hard to ruin our jeans and then patch them. That's how you got status. And now they sell them with tears in them and the knees are knocked out. Lazy, you should. Yeah. You should have to ruin your own genes. But, that was what earned you status when I was in my teens and 20s. Yeah? Okay. Power. We get arrogant over our power. Yeah. I am chief of whatever you are chief of. Yeah. And it becomes, or you're not chief, you have a position, yeah? And then we get arrogant about it. This is my position. This is my duty. Okay. So all of the mental defilements really create barriers to holding good ethical conduct. They create barriers to having friends. Yeah, because when our mind is overpowered by these kind of mental states, we are not terribly pleasant to be around. Okay, and, create a lot of negative karma. So such traits are seen as enemies of good. Yeah. So here we are, we want happiness, and we shoot ourselves in the foot when these kind of mental states dominate our minds. And then our body and speech act accordingly. Okay. So that was verse 12. Verse 13. So he has a few, there was one verse about generosity. Now he's doing more about ethical conduct. So verse 13 is about exercising carefulness regarding what is compatible with discipline. So he says carefulness. I think it's carefulness isn't really an English word. Conscientiousness, I think, is a better word. Yeah. Conscientiousness is the way to deathlessness, while carelessness is death, the Buddha taught. And thus, so that your virtuous deeds may grow, be careful, constantly, and with respect. Okay, so conscientiousness entails practicing virtuous activities and guarding the mind from non-virtuous activities. Yeah. So conscientiousness also entails a respect for good conduct of our body, speech, and mind. Okay? So it's respect and appreciation for acting in ways that contribute to peace and harmony in the world. Yeah. So caring about our ethical conduct, that's what conscientiousness is. So when it says it's the way to deathlessness, deathlessness is a synonym for nirvana. Okay? So while carelessness is death, so the other night we talked about heedlessness, yeah, which is kind of the opposite of conscientiousness. It's like, I don't care, about my ethical conduct. I feel like doing something, I'm going to do it. This was another thing, my generation, be spontaneous. Yeah. And so you let your spontaneity out and you don't refrain from anything. You don't kind of evaluate your own actions and think about, what are the results of your actions. It's just, something pops into your mind and let's do it. Okay. So impulsivity. Yeah. Heedlessness is very involved with that kind of impulsivity. And the guys I write to who are imprisoned, this is one of the big reasons why they're imprisoned. I mean, aside from whatever was dominating their mind when they did their crime, there is often just the feeling of, I don't care. And what's really sad about that is some people grow up in households or in communities where they are not presented with a vision of what they can become. You grow up in a community maybe where your dad's been in and out of jail, your uncle's been in and out of jail, your mom is a drug addict and shooting up. And you grow up in a family like that and you have no vision of what you can become except a drug addict or, your future is in prison like most of the other people in your community. And I find that as one of the saddest things, because people have so much potential. But when they don't see examples of people that they know who have used their potential and what they've accomplished, then they just say, there's no vision for what you can become, which is very, very sad. And then, you get young people with hormones that are going crazy and they do all sorts of things. And then, you go to prison once and you meet all the guys there and they've been in and out for a number of years, and that kind of becomes your future too. Okay, so conscientiousness is something to treasure, to specifically cultivate in our own mind. Okay, so that your virtuous deeds may grow. Yeah, be careful, constantly, and with respect. So there's a sutra quotation here. Carefulness is the way of immortality. Carelessness is the way of death. With carefulness, one will not perish. With carelessness, one always dies. Okay. I don't think that it means that carefulness means immortality. It just means, you will continue to have good rebirths. Your dharma aspirations won't die. Okay, humans who have fortune won, who do not act with carelessness, are called the wise, for thus they are. Their opposites are otherwise. The gods, seduced by carelessness, will swiftly be reborn in hell. And so, O you who are truly wise, treat carelessness like poisoned food. So some beings may be reborn in celestial realms because of previously created ethical conduct, but then they become careless in their good rebirth and create the cause for a lower rebirth again. There was one story some years ago, I'm not very good at names, but one young man belonged to one of these very high-class families. I can't remember which one. He graduated from, I don't know what Ivy League school. And then he, I forget what it was that he did. I can't remember. Maybe it was he killed his father or something. He did something really bad. And so, here he had, according to breeding and wealth, good status, but he didn't care and he didn't use the resources he had to make a positive contribution, to be a good person. And so I think he wound up imprisoned. That's this life, and lower, next life, probably a lower rebirth unless he purifies. Okay, so there's no reason for us to get arrogant because we have a good rebirth now, because it all depends on how we use it. Okay. There's another verse here. Use every method to eliminate the poison that is carelessness. Those who are free from carelessness will cross the ocean like three worlds. So samsara is said to be the three worlds. Okay, that was verse 13. Verse 14 is the benefits and examples of being careful. So the verse reads, those who formerly were careless, but then took heed are beautiful and fair, as is the moon emerging from the clouds, like Nanda, Angulimala, Darshaka, and Udayana. Okay, so this verse answers the question, is it any use trying to talk to people who are careless and try and convince them to change? Yeah. Or are you just wasting your breath in trying to say anything? So there's 4 stories here. I know 3 of them. Oh, yes. No. Here's the other 4th. Okay. So Nanda was the Buddha's younger brother. And he was just terribly in love with his wife and thought she was the most gorgeous thing in the world. And he ordained, but his mind was constantly thinking about his wife. So he didn't do much Dharma practice because his mind was distracted elsewhere. So the Buddha, who had supernormal powers, as the story goes, took Nanda to one of the celestial realms and showed him the women in the celestial realms who were much more gorgeous than his own wife. And then the Buddha told him, you can be reborn here if you practice good ethical conduct now as a monk. And so Nanda, he changed. He was still full of lust, but at least it was for something in the future life which made him restrain his heedlessness now. Okay? So it's a story that tells, somebody who was heedless can change. Okay? Angulimala. Yeah, Angulimala. What a case he was. He had a teacher who is not the kind of teacher that you want. He was the son of a Brahma, so he was high class. But then he got linked up with this really, charlatananda teacher, and who told him to make a necklace with 1,000 people's finger bones. So he had killed 999 people and was making a necklace with their finger bones. And he wanted the 1,000th person. So he saw the Buddha, and he started running after the Buddha, wanting to kill him. He didn't know he was the Buddha. Wanting to kill him and get his finger bones to finish his mala. And he kept shouting at the Buddha, slow down, slow down. And the Buddha was walking very slowly, but no matter how fast he ran, Angulimala could not catch up with him. So when he said to the Buddha, slow down, the Buddha said, I have slowed down. In fact, I've stopped all the defilements in the mind. And then Angulimala and he started talking. Yeah. Angulimala realized, the incredible negativity and harm he had done by killing people. He had great regret. He ordained. Okay, and as an ordained person, he practiced well. He eventually became an arhat. But even though he was an arhat, when he went into town on Pindapat with his alms bowl, the people were terrified of him because they remembered him as, the person, the serial murderer that he was. So people threw things at him, they insulted him, they treated him viciously, yeah. And one day he came back to the Buddha, and he was all beaten up and his robes were torn apart. And the Buddha said, bear it. This is the karmic result of what you have done in the past. And even though now you've changed, you still have to experience the result of what you did in the past. Which is all these people being terrified of him. Okay, the next one was Darshaka, and another name for him is Ajatasattu. Okay, so Ajatasattu was the son of King Bimbisara, who was one of the patrons of the Buddha. And the Buddha, if you think you have bad relatives, the Buddha did too. He had one relative named Devadatta who was constantly trying to kill him, okay, and sent mad elephants charging after him, did all sorts of things trying to kill Devadatta. Because what Devadatta eventually did is he split the Buddha's Sangha. He made up his own doctrine, took away the Buddha's, about half of the Buddha's disciples, started his own sasana, his own, doctrine or teaching, and made himself the leader of the group. Yeah, so it caused tremendous turmoil amongst the Buddha's disciples. So Ajatasattu was friends with Devadatta. Yeah, they were kind of, what do they call it? Companions in crime. So Devadatta was doing all this stuff with the Buddha, harming the Buddha. Ajatasattu, he wanted to take over the wealth and kingdom of his father. So he killed his father. I think he also killed his mother. Yeah. And he afterwards, when he came to know the Buddha and have faith, he had tremendous regret for what he did. And so there's this story that the Buddha said to him, Ajatasattu, you should kill your mother, you should kill your father. And that's given as an example of teachings to not take literally. Okay, teachings that need interpretation. When he was talking about mother and father in that context, the Buddha was referring to 2 of the 12 links that cause continual rebirth in samsara. And I forget, I think he was talking about ignorance and craving. Yeah. And that was the mother and father that you're supposed to kill. Yeah. So it was said that Ajatasattu was so beside himself that he couldn't hear anything else. So the Buddha said that to him to calm him down. You should kill your mother and father. This was, of course, after he had already done it. And then Ajatasattu, he was shocked, and he stopped. And then the Buddha explained, no, you should kill ignorance. You should kill craving, because in that way you will stop your samsara. Okay, so that showed too that Ajatasattu could change, as could Angulimala, as could Nanda. And then the last one, Udayana. Okay, so Udayana killed his mother when she prevented him from sleeping with somebody else's wife. Okay, so he got really mad and killed his mother, and he was expelled from the Sangha, and he went to some remote, out of the way place where nobody knew him. And he too felt regret for what he had done. And so he built a temple, and he gathered different monastics to come there, and he cared for the Sangha. And so as a result, he had a rebirth in which he had a hellish rebirth and then a God rebirth. Okay, the hellish rebirth, the result of killing his mother; the God rebirth, the result of taking care of the Sangha. Okay, again showing that somebody can change. So I think these examples, they're extreme examples, but the point that they're illustrating is very important, that we should never just say, so-and-so is a horrible person, and sign off on them and think that they can never change and that nothing they do or have ever done or will ever do is good, and we can't stand them and we don't want to be around them. Okay, but to really see people can change and to leave the door open for them to change. Because if we hold a very rigid concept of somebody and how bad they are, then even though they may be trying to change, we will treat them continually as if they were a horrible person who isn't worthy of respect. And when we do that, then that takes the wish to change out of the other person. Yeah. And they act according to, they revert to their old behavior, which is how we are expecting them to act. Yeah. So it's don't give up on people. And you see this a lot with kids, the kids who act out, if they get a reputation in the school for being a child who acts out, everybody treats them that way. It's difficult for them to change. Yeah. So with those kids, you have to treat them. Those were the kids that when I was teaching, I would ask to help me. Yeah. Because, you mean the teacher thinks I'm worthy of doing something good that I can help? And, that encourages them. So it's the same with adults, too, doing what we can to really help bring out the best in other people instead of constantly expecting the worst. Yeah. Because how would you like it? If your whole reputation in life was the worst things that you've ever done, and that's all people expected of you. Whenever they saw you, what they saw was this person who's done, the things that you don't respect in your own life. And they treated you as if, well, that's who you are, and, that's what we expect of you. How would you feel if other people looked at you like that? It's really sad. We'd probably be angry. Huh? And then people think that's all you are, or some kind of uncooperative, angry person. Then they think I'm like that. Okay, I'll act that way. Okay, so that was verse 14. We are speeding. Okay, so now he's going to the third of the perfections, which is sometimes it's called patience, but I think fortitude is a much better translation. Yeah, because to me, patience is like, I want something to happen quickly, and somebody's saying, be patient, be patient. And this is not about that kind of patience. This is about the ability to endure hardship. So it could be hardship such as physical problems, being sick or whatever. It could be hardships like people getting angry at you and putting you down. It could be any kind of hardship, yeah? And samsara is full of them. And we don't have to go looking for them. Yeah, they come automatically. Okay, so the verse 15 talks about giving up anger, because anger is one of the ways that we respond to hardship. Yeah, especially if somebody is criticizing us, insulting us, picking out our faults, even if they're true. All these things, it's like we get really angry. So, Nagarjuna says, verse 15, hard to practice, patience knows no peer. So never allow yourself a moment's rage. Avoid all anger, and you will become a non-returner, so the Buddha said. So when we talk about the steps on the path to liberation, to becoming an arhat, the non-returner is the step right before arhatship. Yeah, and as a non-returner, there's 5 fetters that you still have to abandon, and one of them is malice or ill will. So, that's why this one is pointed out here. Okay, so it's acknowledged that fortitude is difficult to practice. When somebody is criticizing you, even what they say is true, yeah, we get mad. It's like, well, I don't have any faults. First of all, you have to understand, I don't have any faults. And if I do, you are not supposed to notice them. And if you notice my faults, even though they exist, you're not supposed to point them out. You're supposed to pretend that I am always noble and flexible and kind and generous, right? Yeah. Nobody is allowed to point out my faults. Yeah. Maybe I can point out my own faults. I can make fun of myself, but don't you try. Okay? So we get really defensive. Really defensive. And our anger makes us miserable, then we lash out at the other person. So, here it's saying that patience knows no peer. Sometimes it's called an ascetic practice. That practicing fortitude is an ascetic practice because there are 4 situations in which you do not retaliate. When someone insults you, you don't insult them back. When somebody beats you, you don't beat them back. When someone criticizes you, you don't criticize them back. And what's the fourth one? I can't remember what the fourth one is. Do you remember? Huh? Oh, yeah, when somebody's angry at you, you don't get angry back. Duh. I should have said that one as the first one. Okay? So abandoning those 4 excellent opportunities to retaliate and give somebody a piece of your mind, it is the superior ascetic practice to refrain. Okay? And not only refrain from responding, but refrain from being angry in your own mind. Okay? Now somebody's going to say, but, everybody gets angry in those situations. It's natural. It's human nature. I don't know anybody who doesn't get angry. When somebody's angry at you, you get angry back. When they insult you, you insult back. When they criticize, you criticize back. When you beat them, when they beat you, you slug them back. This is what everybody does. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous. I will become the world's doormat if I act like that. That's what many people say. Yeah. And so they keep on retaliating. Yeah. But, from the Buddhist perspective, what good is responding to those kind of things with an angry mind? And again, I have to give the example of our dear former president, who insults and criticizes and all those things. And how has it paid off for him? Well, maybe there's some people who vote for him because he embodies their own anger. Yeah. Is that how you want to be known? Is that what you want to be your strong point? That you embody other people's anger and they respect you because you can swear at other people and accuse them falsely and lie about them and criticize them and get everybody chanting, lock him up, or lock her up. Yeah. How do you take pride? How do you have self-respect if your power and authority comes from that kind of action? Even other people fall for it. Yeah, to me, it's difficult to understand. But clearly people do, and they take great pride in their ability to retaliate and harm other people back. But really, at the end of the day, do you even like yourself? Do you have respect for yourself? Okay? So fortitude knows no peer. There's no virtue as beautiful as fortitude and being able to endure difficulties and not freaking out. And the thing is, if you are able to have fortitude in the face of difficulties, it often saves your life. If you've done any reading about the people, about after the communists took hold of China and they arrested zillions of people and threw them in prison, the people who had fortitude endured throughout their imprisonment. The people, who were actually weak inside, even though they may have made a grand appearance on the outside, they wound up dying. Yeah. And, the same thing with the Tibetans who were imprisoned when the Chinese communists overrun their country. The people who could endure, who didn't get angry and freak out, they made it through years sometimes of torture and imprisonment. Whereas the people who freaked out, usually they died. Yeah. And it's really something when you hear stories of what people endure and how they come out of it as gracious, kind people. You know, they don't come out of it as bitter, resentful people. So one monk, he wrote a book, Thubten Chodron, I think was his name. Some of you were there when he came to Seattle. And he wrote a book about the time when he was imprisoned for many years. I don't know how many, 18, 20, 30, something, a lot, okay? And he gave a talk, and, you know, calm. He wasn't bitter, yeah? He was not bitter. And the talk, the place where I lived was the Dharma Center. And so he spoke there. The only time we could get him to speak was 6 o'clock in the morning one day. So we did. And then we offered breakfast afterwards. And while I was preparing breakfast, there was a picture of His Holiness on the wall. And Thubten Chodron just sat and looked at that picture of His Holiness for I don't know how long while I made breakfast. And you could tell that was what gave him strength, yeah? His devotion to His Holiness and to what His Holiness meant for him, the virtues His Holiness embodied, that's what gave him strength during his imprisonment. Okay? So, getting angry, retaliating, that's the easy thing to do. Yeah? Keeping yourself balanced mentally and physically is much more difficult. It is an ascetic practice. Okay, the next verse is talking about giving up resentment. First one, giving up anger. Now giving up resentment. Okay, so this is resentment because somebody else is angry at you. Okay, so we harbor resentment, and you'll remember this from Friday night, you know. He insulted me with abusive language. He hit me with things like stones and sticks. Oh, that's, you know, how about he hit me with a laser? He hit me with a flashbang. Yeah. He got the better of me by ridiculing me and using his power. He ran off with my money. Okay. So one builds up the motives for negative actions, you know, physical and verbal negative actions when we think like this. And then we also, it sparks, you know, quarrels because somebody did something to us, so I'm going to retaliate. Yeah, I'm not just going to sit there. You know, I'm going to give this guy a taste of his own medicine. Okay. And so you hold a grudge and you start a big thing. Yeah. Again, our world is full of this kind of stuff. And you can see the very sorrowful effect it has on many innocent people. Yeah. When 9/11 happened, I was thinking, you know, okay, these people don't like America. America doesn't like these people. But you know what? I don't want to be in the middle of it. I don't, you know, if they don't like each other, let's put, who was it, Bush and Osama bin Laden in a sandbox and let the two of them duke it out. But why do the rest of us have to suffer because of their quarrel? I mean, it was a few more people than just the two of them. But, you put 100 people on each side, the people for whom this really matters, let them figure it out, but leave the rest of us alone. We don't want to be involved in your quarrels. They aren't important to us. Yeah? So, yeah, but this is the kind of thing when we hold grudges like this and repeat again and again to us. What are we repeating to ourselves? He insulted with his abusive language. He hit me with things. He got the better of me and ridiculed me. He ran off with my money. And then we repeat it again, like we're reciting mantra. Okay? We take out our mala. We do, a whole mala. He insulted me. He did this. He did this. He did this. And then we repeat it again. Yeah? Where's that get? What is that? Where does that get us? Yeah, it makes us totally miserable, doesn't it? Why do we keep doing it? Why do we hold these grudges? I have a theory that when people age, okay, part of them physically, they get bent over. But I think part of the reason many people get bent over is because they accumulate grudges. They accumulate bitterness. And then you wind up as a bitter old person. Yeah? Who feels, everybody mistreated me, everybody took advantage of me. Yeah. And you have your whole pity party. And for what? For what? What does it do to your family? If you're a parent and you hold grudges against other family members or other people, and you talk badly about other family members in front of your kids, what are you teaching your kids? You're teaching your kids to hate each other and talk badly about each other because that's the way you talk about your siblings in front of the kids. Or you talk badly about your parents in front of your kids. You're teaching your kids to talk badly about you. Yeah, people don't think of that. That especially with kids learn by observing what their parents do. My mother used to say, do what I say, not as I do. Yeah? And some of the things they did, I don't want any part of. And I remember having strong resolutions not to act that way. But then, other people, you see your parents acting that way, then yeah, I might as well too. That's the way it's done, isn't it? Okay, so that's verse 16. Okay, so then verse 17 is about a particular feature of the mind that is the basis for fortitude. Oh, so this is a beautiful verse, okay? Understand your thoughts to be like figures drawn on water, sandy soil, or carved in stone. Of these, the tainted thoughts, the first, the best, while when you long for Dharma, it's the last. Okay, so our thoughts we should see as like figures that you can draw on water, on three things: water, sand, and stone. If you draw something on water, does it stay? No. If you draw something on sand, it stays a little bit, but the wind blows it. If you carve something on stone, it's there for a long time. Okay, so Nagarjuna is saying, our non-virtuous thoughts should be like things drawn on water. Yeah, you draw on water, 1 second later, it's not there. Okay? So let's not have our negative thoughts be drawn on stone. Let's draw them on water. Okay? And then our virtuous thoughts should be drawn on stone. They should last for a long time. Okay, so thoughts of kindness, of care and consideration, of integrity, of generosity, and so on. These things we should make very strong in our own minds. And then thoughts of retaliation, of being entitled to something. These should be like thoughts drawn on water. Okay. Then that's verse 17. Verse 18 is about avoiding harsh words, which is the main condition that sparks off anger. Yeah? You want to make somebody mad? Harsh words is the way to do it quickly. Okay? So 3 kinds of speech are used by humankind. And these the victor variously described, like honey, sweet, like flowers, true, and like filth, improper speech. Oh, no, like honey, sweet, like flowers, true, and then the third one is like filth. And then the 4th line says, improper speech, the last of these eschew. Okay? So, he's saying that the Buddha taught that there were 3 kinds of speech. Yeah, a speech that is like honey, that creates harmony between people, that solves problems, that encourages people, that points out to people what they did well so that they know to continue. Okay, that kind of speech is the speech, the speech that's like honey. Expressing positive emotions and really saying things through what we, moving people, helping to move people in a positive direction through what we say. And then second kind of good speech is truth. When we speak the truth, we talked about that yesterday, how important speaking the truth is. And then the third kind of speech is like filth. Yeah. We criticize people, we create problems with our speech, we lie, we deceive, we act with pretension, we call people names, we ridicule them over something that they're sensitive about. Yeah, you name it. And, sometimes our speech can really be a weapon of mass destruction. So we have to be careful. We can destroy a lot of people's lives and their happiness with improper speech. Okay, so we went over time a little bit, but we finished, we finished 18 verses. So we will pick up tomorrow with a joyous effort, or what they call diligence in this translation.